I'm done now with the explanation of the parable of the sower. After that, in Matthew, which I've already used before, is the parable of the wheat and the tares. Because I used that already, I would just skip right to the explanation of the wheat and the tares. After that, he doesn't just explain that, he gives other parables. He says again, the kingdom of heaven is like to treasure hidden in a field. After that, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking goodly pearls. I think that's it, just those two extra. But in Mark and Luke, there are even more parables added that continue after the parable of the sower, because there is no explanation of the parable of the wheat and the tares in Mark and Luke. It continues after some 30-fold, some 60, some 100. He said to them, "Is a candle brought to be put under a bushel or under a bed? Nothing is hidden which shall not be manifested. Take heed what you hear. With what measure you mete, it shall be measured to you. To you that hear shall more be given. The kingdom of God is as if a man should cast seed into the ground." A different kind of sowing parable. Then he explains the mustard seed. But I already used that, so just these two are extra. In Luke, after the parable of the sower is done, bring forth fruit with patience, it goes on to say, "No man, when he has lighted a candle, covers it with a vessel, or puts it under a bed, but sets it on a candlestick. Take heed, therefore, how you hear, for whosoever has, to him shall be given, whosoever is not, from him shall be taken even that what he has." Okay, so what should I put next? After the explanation of the parable of the sower, should I go right into the explanation of the parable of the wheat and the tares, or should I continue with the other parables that are given in Mark and Luke, and then put the explanation of the wheat and the tares? As I see it, he was out in the boat, in the water. He gave 2 or 3 parables. The sower, the wheat and the tares, and some others. The mustard seed and leaven. So he gave 4 parables while in the boat. He came back in and then explained the first one, the parable of the sower. So he gave some parables, came in and explained one. Should I add more parables and then his final explanation? Or have the explanation of the first parable, explanation of the second parable, and then more parables? That's the question. Should it be explain, more parables, explain? Or explain, and then yet more parables? I'm leaning towards explain. Have him explaining the first 2 right away, and then give more. And one of the reasons why I'm leaning towards that is because during his explanation of the wheat and the tares, right when he's done, the very next verse, after it says, "Who has ears to hear, let him hear," it goes right into the next verse. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like to treasure. So at least in Matthew, even though I know Matthew's out of order, it goes right from this second explanation to more parables. And after he's all done with these parables, it says in verse 53, "And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these parables, he departed from there." So that would lead one to believe that the explanations would come first after he came back in. Then he'd be giving more parables, because the next event begins with after these parables. It doesn't say after he's explaining this parable, he went away, which would fit if he had one explanation, more parables, final explanation, then went. Mark, again, it goes with explanation of the sower, more parables. Some of them I've already used during his speech. The mustard seed, because that one was, at least in Matthew, before the first explanation. After all them, though, verse 33, Mark 4, it says, "And with many such parables spoke he the word to them." I think I already used that. But still, it would lead you to believe that when he's finally done, when he's totally done with all of his speech, before he actually gets in the boat and leaves, it says, when he's done speaking parables. So the last thing he's doing should be more parables, not another explanation. Luke. I don't know if there's any hints in Luke. I'll take a look. No. Nope, no hints. So between Matthew and Mark, even though I believe they're out of order, it's still somewhat of a clue that when he's done with all of his parables and explanations, it says now that he's finished with parables, he did the next things. Also, I think that it would fit better because when he's in the boat, he gives two parables that he explains later. But before he gives the explanation, he gives extra parables, two more. The kingdom of heaven is like mustard seed and like leaven. Then he explains the first two, and then yet more parables. So it would fit. Parables, extra, not explained. Explained, extra, not explained. Or if he does, it doesn't mention them. So I'm inclined to continue right into the explanation of the parable of the wheat and the tares. Then go into the parables of kingdom of heaven is like treasure you found in a field. Light a candle, you don't put it under a bushel or under a bed. And then after all that, he gets into the boat and continues on.